Welcome to Your Wealthy Self with me, Regina Martinelli. Here we focus on you being able to expand your capacity for money, success, abundance, and inner wealth. For you to have what's most important to you, both inside and out, so you too can be your wealthy self. This show is about honoring your wholeness, that you are enough, just as you are, to have what's most important to you, what you desire the most. And what's important to you might be the freedom to have more success, more money without guilt or shame, or maybe it's the ease in being unapologetically you, or more certainty in your sense of purpose, or feeling daily joy and fulfillment with your success and yourself. So this show is about money and a whole lot more. And today is one of those days where we'll be discussing the whole lot more with my guest, Lisa Jones, who is a TV host of a lively weekly show called Women Winning the Game of Life, making the rules and having more fun. I'm very excited. And if you didn't tune in last week, she was my guest then, but we are having way too much fun. So we decided to do the second part of a two-part series with her. So again, if you haven't watched it, I recommend you do so at the next opportunity. And for those of you who don't know who Lisa is, she's a dynamic speaker, a stand-up comedian, and an author who's very much known for blending humor, which I love, creativity, and by using games to solve everyday challenges that we women deal with, offering playful solutions that inspire us to author our own lives with more fun and less stress. I mean, who wouldn't want that? One of the things that I adore about Lisa is her commitment to empower women to create our own rules and to win at our lives while we're having fun. It's so easy for us to set aside fun for getting things done, but getting things done is so much more fun when we're having fun while we do it. So let's dive in and welcome Lisa. So Lisa, it's great to have you here for part two.
Yes, I'm excited to be back.
All right. So tell me, how do we develop a mindset of play? How do we like, you know, foster that?
How do we foster? Well, we start to play every day. We start just incorporating, like make it the one of the first things you do in the morning. Kind of like how to how do you develop a mindset for exercise? Well, you work it into your schedule every day. So why not schedule play is my question, Regina. Why not schedule it into our calendars if we have to? If it doesn't come naturally, start scheduling it in. Like I have a schedule every day of writing where allow myself to write 30 minutes. Most of it's comedy writing, but I am currently also working on another book. So that's my 30 minutes where I have to write. So it's either something funny or something that I'm putting in my book. So schedule play. We can schedule it and start, and that's how you get. And then once, as you know, doing it for 30 days. What's that thing with doing it for 30 more days? It becomes a habit. Then you have a play habit that you have on your hands. So I don't know if you need to schedule it much after that, but it helps to have it in the calendar because then you kind of feel committed to do it.
Right. And have you noticed if you are gone or something happens and you can't have that moment of writing or that time of play that something feels off?
Yeah, like on vacation, on vacation's a little easier because you can kind of like with me, like my daughter's with me, so having a kid that's under the age of 10, I think is the easiest way to keep you playing. They constantly
Totally.
are a reminder. I mean, for those of the listeners that are listening to this right now, like people that come in, like kids that come in your office when you're working, when they say, "Oh, can you look at this or look at my drawing or help me color this?" Say yes to those opportunities because that's
Mhm.
your spirit of play. They're it's always alive in them. It can always be alive in you too.
Right. And they're always in the moment and they bring us back to that
Mhm.
moment. You know, yeah, that's so great. But have you ever had a time when you felt kind of joyless or without play and it was kind of a struggle to reach for it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, even after I had my brain tumor removed, like I have one of my good friends who knows I'm all about play brought me this mind game book to the
Mhm.
hospital. She's like, you don't look like yourself. Like you just, after having a brain tumor removed, it feels like someone like took you and threw you into a wall. That's how bad it hurts. So she's like, use this because this is an easier thing to play. Like you can't get up and do the usual things that you might do to play. Like it's going to hurt you to move around and play a board game. Like just sit there with your pencil and try to do some of these mind games. And I think that was really helpful. And there was some days when, yes, I was in so much pain. I was like, I don't know how I can be happy about trying to play. But I think it's kind of like learning to walk. Like you just have to put one foot in front of the other and keep doing it. Just play. That's why I always like just say it's just easy, just play.
Right. And there is something about like the endorphins that get released that actually can become addictive, like people who get the runner's high, where like playfulness, that lightness of being. And I find it brings me back into my body too.
Yeah.
And, I have a young child too, it's 5.5, and his favorite thing to play is like moving your body in crazy, silly ways, or, and so he'll ask me for like a glass of milk and I'll open the fridge and I'll be like, I'm bringing the milk over. And he's like, oh my God, and then I laugh because I feel so awkward and silly. And then it makes me laugh too. It's like, it's fun and it kind of begets more.
Yeah. It's like you're basically doing improv with your kid, which is so cool.
Yes, thank you. And one of the things I want to say about for audience when people just feel kind of stuck or irritated or angry, and you're like, I just don't feel like playing right now. If you make a caricature of that experience of yourself in the moment, like I just don't feel like playing right now, then it's like it actually gets you out of it. It's that exaggeration of the irritation you feel. I'm not talking like yelling louder, but just being like, I feel like this. I don't want that. Then it makes you actually, it snaps something. It reconnect something and let something else go where there's more play available. I don't know if you've ever found that, Lisa.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Because I think a lot of times, like I've heard people say, like they're, for lack of a better word, they're overthinking play. So that's one thing I say to be aware of. Be away. Let me repeat that again. Let's make a game out of saying beware. Beware of overthinking it. Like just that's what a lot of times what happens. So play is about freedom, not perfection. So people guilt themselves into thinking it's a waste of time, but it isn't. So again, you don't need to be perfect. So it's your opportunity just to have fun. Laugh so hard
Yeah.
you snort. That's my favorite time.
Oh my God, I love it. I've gotten so many nuggets from you from the last episode and even just starting this episode. I want you to write a little book about this. Just it could even be 100-page how-to book with these, like it's sneaky self-care, like all these little nuggets are so great. And you realize how easy play can be because we do overthink it. Are there any
Mhm.
other pitfalls that you would say you see people bump into when they're trying to be more playful in their lives?
I think it's kind of like I always tell people to go take an improv class. And if
Mm.
you watch people in improv classes, the reason why they're not enjoying it is because they'll be given a prompt and then they overthink or they're trying to think ahead. The key is to do what your first instinct is or the first thing that's going to come out of your mouth, just say it because that's when you're really allowing yourself to play. So it's that very first thought. And it's kind of like when you're playing with your son and he says, I want you to bring the milk to me like you're a giraffe, like serving the milk and bringing it. Like, what's your first instinct of something to do? That's what you do. That's the improv. That's being in that moment. And what you said earlier, Regina, is always being in that moment. It's that moment that you want to be in, not the moment ahead, like of you after you hit the like you did so well in improv, but you thought about what you were going to say ahead of time. You
Yes.
don't want
No,
to
I
think
love it.
about it.
No, yeah. And there's something about, you've said this before, about it brings you into that moment. And there's something I learned because as we know, children are always at play and they take play very seriously. They're like, oh, how do I play this? I want to do this, then, and they're in the moment so they can be exaggerated. They can be all these things. Um, I saw this with like when my son was a toddler is to snap him out of these hard moments where he was, you know, frustrated or losing or going to have a meltdown. This woman wrote this book called The Joyful Toddlers and Preschoolers. It's one of my favorite books, and it said you either, the acronym was SMILE. It's silliness, it's movement, it's imagination, laughter, and exaggeration. If I did one of those things with him, it would bring him out of this entrenched to like, and I'd even pick him up and kind of bounce him. And you just need to move the energy because he was stuck in this, and it just was compounding. And I realized we as adults do that, but then we go and, personally, I go and eat a piece of chocolate or a whole candy bar or two, or a bowl of ice cream, or we like, get frustrated, or we yell, or we do these things that we've seen modeled as children instead of like our own exaggeration that can bring us back into play. And it was,
Yes. And that's so
I
true.
feel
And
like,
the other thing I'm thinking of is like my daughter's in this thing where she's crossing her eyes now and she makes these weird eye things, and I wanted to get her to stop. So I could just say, stop making that face. Like my mom would say, like your eyes are going to stay that way, which we know is not true. So instead, I'll make the face and then do some silly sound with it, and it snaps her right out of it, but she giggles. Like she thinks it's the funniest thing. She'll be like, "Do it again," and I'm like, "No, I'm not going to do it again, just because I'm telling you not to do it." But it got her to like stop doing it. So I can't even do
right.
it. It gives me a headache.
No, I totally get it. But there's this place of we all get stuck, right? And taking that exaggeration, that silliness, that playfulness to that can help break us out when we do it with children, or even with friends, right? Um, I remember when I was in high school and I would do something very embarrassing, I would call my best friend and say, I need you to laugh at me. I need you to laugh at me for something I'm about to tell you that is incredibly painful. And just her laughing, making fun of it allowed me the space to make fun of it and laugh and get through it. Like let that tension come out through laughter.
Yes, it's
That's
a
why,
amazing tension release. Make sure you're doing it.
yeah,
And the whole thing with statistics, like babies laugh 400 times a day. Adults, we're like 50. Like it's not. Yeah, it's like the statistic is crazy. So you want to make sure that we are definitely laughing more. We do not laugh enough.
yeah, adults at 50, if we're lucky, right?
Yeah, like some people don't even laugh at all. Yeah.
Right.
Start
So,
counting how much
you're
you laugh, just like you count
right.
minutes you're playing.
There you go. Now, and as a mom yourself, how do you make sure that your daughter, Mira, also keeps playing in her life for years to come? Like, have you thought about when she's a teenager and that kind of trajectory?
Yes, because she's 6 going on 16, so she's already demonstrating that she's no, but seriously, every night before bed, we have what I call laugh time, which is also
Yeah.
playtime because you could be laughing and playing at the same time. But we try to make each other laugh before bed. Like it's kind of a thing that we do together. So one time she made a joke about a broccoli superhero saving the carrots from evil cheese dip, which I thought was hilarious. And then we both laughed until we cried. So really these moments that you have with your kid, it's like sacred time. And by modeling play, which I make sure I'm doing on a daily basis, I'm showing her that it's not just okay to be silly, it's essential for happy life. So she's
Oh,
learning that, and she's learning play is okay. Like, how many times do you remember, like, as a kid, somebody saying to you, knock it off, stop playing around? Like, no, we want to play around. Like, you want to play around. I want to be doing that until I'm 100 years old.
well, that's what's
Like,
going to
there's not
get
a,
you to 100 years old.
yeah, like, it's not a time to, like, I think a lot of times we're saying, and if you go, like, a fly on the wall and observe a school, they're telling kids to stop playing around. Like, it's time for learning. Well, play can be involved in learning.
Yeah, play actually helps learning people. There are statistics that you actually learn better when you play. You'll remember it when you play it. Like you play a game about it. Like you were talking in the first episode about like playing games and learning strategies and taking those to solve problems. It's the same way. And we so want people to learn in a box or in a compartment, like children at a desk sitting, when they need more movement, more play in their bodies to really grok it. I loved what you said about like teaching her to play, and that play is actually a necessity, especially for like a happy, healthy life. That is such a gift to teach your child, and then to have her model it throughout her life. It's huge because
Yeah.
I do remember when I was a kid and like being at the dinner table and told not to laugh or not to play around, and that only made me want to laugh harder. And then I got into more trouble because it's like, don't do it. And you're like, and you're starting to shake because you're laughing because there's all this energy that wants to come out. And it's almost, I think as a child, I heard it as like, you're too happy or you're too much. And that creates a whole other piece about self worth and deserving and self esteem that gets deteriorated or shamed.
No, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great point.
Yeah. So, what is it that you love about what you do?
Well, so much, but I think the main part is seeing that light bulb moment when somebody realizes that fun isn't just a distraction. Because a lot of times people think, oh, I'm having fun, I'm being distracted, I must get back to work. Really, that distraction, fun, it's the secret sauce to a fulfilling life. So it's that light bulb moment that I see, that switch that turns, and they're like, oh, I can play and I can work hard too. And my thing is
Yeah.
like
And do you
work
find that
hard but play harder.
nice? Now, do you find that because you're such a playful person and your eyes on like how to play and how to have fun and create play, that that your husband comes along easily with that as well, or do you have to kind of encourage him to play a bit more?
Oh, he's an attorney, so yes,
Mhm.
he does need some encouragement because sometimes he's like, "I need to be serious. I'm writing a brief," and I was like, "Me too." And then I'll like Mira and I will act out characters in the brief, like we're just making things up. So yeah, sometimes he plays along, and other times it's a little harder too. It's definitely a game. It's a fun game. I'm not always winning that game though.
Right, and there's a place to know like when you've gamed enough, and you have to kind of call it a draw or whatever. There's times you can just push it over, and then they just have to play, right?
Yeah, if it's on the weekend, if it's during the week, okay, I know there's a deadline, so.
Right. So, tagging onto that question, what do you say to people who think that practicing or trying to play takes all the fun out of it?
If you're trying, well, I once worked with this woman. She was a Fortune 500. She ran her household like a Fortune 500 company. Like she was kind of like a big deal. And then she said to me, "Play? I don't have time for that." So I challenged her to take 10 minutes to play with her kids. And a week later, like she's like, "I accept this challenge." A week later, she came back and she said, "I felt lighter, I felt more
Mhm.
connected, and I felt happier." And we kind of agreed right then and there that play isn't just for kids. It's really the secret weapon for thriving as a woman and men too. Yeah. Thriving as a human being. Let's say that.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you have any other stories like that you can share?
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch. Usually it's kind of like episode one or when we talked last week, we were talking about like, what is the one myth that people say, and they'll say play is just for kids, or I don't have time to play, which is a big one. I don't have
Mhm.
time because people think that they don't have time. But my question is like, why can't we schedule joy in our calendar? Because that's essentially what we're doing. Joy should have a spot, right? Should have a daily
Yeah,
spot, if not more.
right. And the more we schedule it, it actually, as your friend was saying, that woman, it's like life gets lighter, and then that play becomes more fun, and it becomes more like, oh, I'm thirsty for some water, I'm thirsty for some play, and then the rest of your week goes lighter too,
Yes.
the rest of your day, and it feeds on
Yeah.
itself.
So
Hmm.
it's like we need to change the script. Treat play
Yeah.
as a priority, not a luxury. Like some people are like, I'll
Hmm.
get to that later, or I'll do that. You know how many times people say, I'll do something tomorrow, and then tomorrow, I mean, it never comes when we're doing it. Like I'm guilty of that. Like there's there's certain things I'll move in my calendar because I overschedule myself sometimes in my mind. I'm like, I'm gonna do all this in one day, and then I find myself moving it. But there's a couple of things that have been moved literally for like 60 days in a row, and I'm like, and then I'll identify it and be like, why aren't I doing that? And there's a
Ah,
reason. You have to think about it. And I'll play a game and I'll be like, okay, I got to figure out why I'm not doing this. And then there's usually some either a fear, it's usually a fear as to why I wasn't doing it. And then I make it a game out of it, and I'll do it the next day.
oh
I
my God, I
flip
love
the
it.
switch. I have to flip the switch. I have to do it. Yeah.
Can I ask you if you can think of it? What's the game, like an example, like a specific example about a fear you found or something that you've been moving that you're like, this is the game I then played with it, just so we can get a better idea for
Yeah,
ourselves?
yeah. I had, I'll give you a recent example because it was sitting on my calendar. I kept moving it. I wanted to email this woman that I had met at a conference. And I had a conversation. It was a quick conversation in passing, and I said, I have an idea. Like, your organization needs to have a comedy fundraiser, and I can help put it together, and I can come and I can do this fundraiser. It could be part of like myself and another comedian, two other comedians can come do this. And she's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Follow up by email. But then there was some reason why I didn't send her an email like right after the conference. And months had gone by, and like every day I was staring at it, like, it was a simple email. Like, why couldn't I email this person? So then I sat with it. I played a game, and it was because I was afraid of the fear of like her not remembering who I was and me asking again. And so I made it a game. I was like, okay, if I can email her, what I did was I combined it with other emails I was doing in a day. So it was like a 5 and 10. I had to email 5 out of the 10 people, but I put her name. This is going to sound so weird, in a hat with the 10 other people I was supposed to email. And if I pull her out, that's how she gets emailed. And then the next ones I was going to do the next day. Well, she got pulled out in the first 5 that I was going to email that day, so I had to do it. So I'm like,
Oh, that's
okay,
great.
fine.
Right. It's almost like the choice of emailing her or not gets taken out of your
Yeah.
power, out of you, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to play a game and look who I drew. This is the lottery winner for today. That's
Yeah, so
brilliant.
it's kind of like I did it, and I just did it. It was methodical in the way that I did it, and I was just like, okay, who's the next person? And I just emailed and I sent it, and I didn't have an emotion related to it. I didn't have a fear of like, okay, what if she doesn't answer me? Oh well, she doesn't answer me. Somebody else might. So I had sent out 5 emails that day. I did not get a response from her, but I got a response from like 3 other people. So I was like, okay, somebody answered me.
Right. And just going through that exercise and playing with it probably lightened it up for the next time you have that, kind of resistance again.
Yeah, so that's like that one of those like it was simple, it wasn't even like the game didn't take much thought, but
Yeah.
it moved the needle in having me do it. And it took that what I had something on my to-do list for months moved off my to-do list. It's no longer staring at me in the face. So that's a challenge. I mean, I need to take my own advice. Play more of those games. Why isn't this moving on my calendar?
Right, but there's something so fun about, again, removing the impending stuff we carry about it, like, oh, I got to email her, it's been so long, or all that preconceived notions that we're carrying. Like, oh, look at
Yes.
this. This is just who I have to do it. And it shifts it into a whole different frame and a whole different, existence over here. And it makes it way easier to move through. That's awesome, Lisa. That's great.
Yes. And that's why I did
Thank
it.
you
So
for
I'm
sharing.
just going to take that and that feeling and just do it. Put the name in the hat. There you go.
I love it. The name in the hat. Put the to-do item in the hat.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this our second episode goes so quickly. So let me ask you my final question. How do you create your wealthy self in your life?
Well, I love that question. And it makes sense why you're asking me it. But
Yeah.
I define wealth as time well spent, laughter shared, and the freedom to do what makes my heart sing, which is playing and laughing. And I really think that that's the true riches in life.
That's beautiful. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for being on our show. This has
Glad to
been
be here.
so much, yeah, it's been so much fun. And thank you for all you do to empower women for us to create our own rules and to win at our own lives while we're having fun. I said this last time, but it really does inspire me to have more fun in my life and the ways to do it. You're so creative. It's really playful. It's really lovely. And it doesn't feel like a to do. It feels excitement, like you're going to go have coffee and tea with your best friend, you know?
Yes.
Yes. So if you want to find Lisa, she's at lisajoneslaw.com. I'd love to hear what you got from today's show, how you are bringing more play into your life. You can send me a note at yourwealthyself@e360tvlive.com. I'd love to hear about it. If you got anything from today's show, please share it. There's enough fear in the world. Let's create more joy. I love and adore you. You are an incredibly beautiful and precious being. And please know you are enough just as you are. Until then, we'll see you next time